Hi, welcome back to another episode of Out of Spec Bits. I was just in Austin, Texas, which is a tech miniature mega hub, for lack of a better term. We got a lot of stuff there, big tech companies, even Tesla, Gigafactory, all that stuff. And I was there for a wedding. Now, went to the airport, got to the airport late flight, and rolled up to the rental counter, and there was, a huge line of disgruntled passengers.
Disgruntled, yep.
And it was I guess it was a race weekend. So the wedding was poor timing because there was a race that weekend.
At Coda?
Yes, motocross something or other.
Oh, okay.
But stuff at Coda too. It's just great chaos. So we pull up to the rental counter and there was like no cars left apparently. And by that they meant there's only EVs and big trucks. They announced this to the line of people waiting to get their rental cars that they reserve, by the way. It's a really frustrating system when you reserve a compact SUV, which apparently we did, and then that SUV is not there. I don't really understand how that works, but it's kind of like overbooking planes, right? And we roll up and they mentioned that to everyone, and everyone just sighed with frustration. And then everyone in front of me and presumably behind me just said, fine, I'll take the big truck, which was wild to me. I was excited. I was like, oh, heck yeah, EV. And so that was kind of a funny experience, and I wanted to talk about that and maybe what that means. And apparently that's still the lay of the land, even though we've had EVs now, even beyond Tesla, for a decade.
So did you have your rental car booked, like you mentioned, just through one company? You obviously just reserved one car, presumably?
Yeah.
Who was it with?
So we actually picked budget just to get a cheap runaround for this wedding, and we knew it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere in the country, so that's probably why my girlfriend Jess just kind of picked a random, just whatever's cheapest. Didn't care. If I had booked it, I probably would have picked EV just to see what happens. And so I was like the only person who was like, yeah, when they announced this.
So, I mean, that sounds like my dream situation. Big ass diesel truck or electric car.
Right.
I'm happy.
How would you pick that?
I don't know. I don't know what I would do. Probably an EV in Austin because there's plenty of charging.
Well, we walked out to the parking garage and we saw that I was like, oh, there are some big trucks that are EVs. They had a Silverado EV and a couple of F-150 Lightnings.
Nice.
And I was like,
Budget had them.
That'd be funny if someone...
Lightnings?
Yeah.
I didn't know you could rent a Lightning.
I didn't either.
That's cool. I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, I didn't either. And so it would have been funny if someone was like, fine, I'll take the big truck. I hate EVs. And they were given...
Here's a Lightning.
I was like, what happens if that happens? So it was frantic. So they were just randomly assigning EVs. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of curious what I'm going to get. Like they just said, go out to space A29. And I show up and it's a Model Y. And I was like, well... That's easy.
Yeah. Well, it's so nice. So normally I rent electric cars with Hertz.
Right.
Is Budget Hertz or is Budget Avis?
No, so Budget and Avis. And so we rented through Budget, and then no one was at Budget. So then we had to use Avis, which is fine. They share the same fleet.
Right.
But that's, not quite as nice of an experience as Hertz. Like with Hertz, I think with a Tesla, you can use your app and stuff.
Right. So that's what I was going to say is I love to rent Teslas from Hertz.
Yeah.
Because I just absolutely love a car smelling like weed when I get inside it. I'm just joking. But that seems to be all of them, which that sucks. Because I just don't want to be in like someone's nasty car.
Right.
So like that is an annoyance. But I do love that I can get into one of the Teslas. I can scan the QR code. My profile loads up, my seat settings, my Spotify. None of them have premium connectivity, so I always have to hotspot to the car.
Yeah, that was frustrating.
Yeah, and it's like, just put premium connectivity on the damn things.
I couldn't believe that. It's like $10 a month, and they can't bake that into somehow all the rentals they're doing. I don't understand.
Or let me pay for it.
Yeah.
Like $1 a day or something.
I would gladly add that.
Also, let me pay to have FSD.
Yeah.
Like it should be fully integrated. But here's the thing, Jordan, what you experienced with those people in line sighing about getting an EV, I think is representative of like over 90% of rental people. Because here's the thing, when you go to a new, presumably if you're renting a car, it's in a new location. So not only are you tired, you just flew in, you had to sit in the middle in the last row for the last 5 hours to get to your destination. Then you're like, oh yeah, I've got an electric car. Most of the time you get it full, but oftentimes you don't, in my experience, and I rent a lot of cars. And then you're in a new place with a new car with new charging infrastructure that you don't really want to deal with.
Yeah.
And most of the time they force you to bring it back above 80% state of charge.
Yeah.
Which means you have to plan an extra hour ahead of your flight to charge it up to 100, and then you got to drive it over to the airport and hope it doesn't dip below 80%. Otherwise, it's, I've had them charge me $1 per kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
At Hertz. Each one seems to be different, like on how they do the return. I think you should just be able to return them dead. Electricity's cheap. They can handle the charge, but really these rental car companies have not figured it out yet. Oh, it looks like Ellie made it here.
Hi, Ellie.
Hey, Ellie.
It's a comment.
If you hear a dog whimpering, it's Ellie. She's excited.
Her head's covered in slobber.
Oh, because she was probably, I don't know. It just happens.
Anyways, so there's a couple things to mention. When they said that, they also said, oh, by the way, you don't have to bring it back charged, which
that's nice.
Eliminates a huge barrier to entry. I think that would be a concern for a lot of people. Even then, a lot of people are renting cars from this airport, which is 9 miles from the airport.
LA.
It's 9 miles from downtown. So logically, a lot of people are renting a car, maybe driving a little bit. These cars are all mostly fully charged, by the way, and then return it. They wouldn't have to worry about charging. They'd be completely fine. They still didn't want to worry about it. So that was still too much for many people to ask, I guess.
Yeah, so back to my previous point on this exact topic, which is a rental car being electric sucks. It's even you as an EV nerd, and Jess as someone who's EV curious, chose to rent a combustion car because you just have to get to the wedding. You need to be there on time. You don't want to deal with all this externalities. You can fill it up for 2.5 minutes before you return it, and you're done.
Right. Yeah. And there's the people who, of course, don't have EVs, which is still a majority. So the last thing they would want is to rent an EV. And there's people who do have EVs. Maybe they're not EV super nerds like a lot of our audience. And so even though they have an EV at home, you're right. They're going to a different place, but they're not familiar with. And still, I'd say, I'm curious. I kind of want to run a poll. Like, how many EV owners actually know about PlugShare, for example? Like, what would you do? And going out to the garage, seeing all the cars, they had EQS, EQE, Ioniq 5, Ioniq 6, Mustang Mach-E. They had everything. Volvo, Polestar. And some of those cars are better than others at showing charging stations. And so the experience really does vary.
Yeah, and many of them support plug and charge, but I can almost guarantee you 0 of them will be set up properly, except for Tesla, which they bill you when you return the car.
Yep.
So I think if you're going to do an electric rental car, it really does have to be a Tesla.
Yep.
Because I'm just speaking if you're a rental car company, because it interfaces natively with the supercharger network. It handles billing natively, and Tesla has a great fleet backend that allows rental companies to charge you at the time of return the billing that you had during your charging sessions. That works.
Yeah.
And even then, that's hard for people to figure out. For example, I was driving back from Austin, Texas, not long ago in my Model S, and I went to a supercharger in can you remember where? Middle of nowhere, Texas.
Yep.
And I plugged in, and we went and had dinner and came back to the car, and there was just a Model Y rental car, I presume, sitting there at the supercharger, unplugged. The guy's just like sitting in the car, like on his phone.
Yep.
I'm like, that seems weird. Maybe he just got there or finished charging or whatever. And he runs up to me. He's like, hey, can you help me charge my car?
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm like, well, did you try? Anyway, I just like, he's like, how do you charge this thing?
Yeah.
And I just grabbed the handle, hit the button, and plugged it in. And he was like, oh, I'm such an idiot. How did I not know that? These are the types of people that we're dealing with. That is the general population.
Right. I was told the space to go to. They didn't even know what car I was getting when they told me, or maybe they did and just didn't tell me. And when I showed up, it was a Tesla, but they didn't say anything about how to drive it, how to charge it. If I needed that, they said nothing.
Right. And if you go to the websites, like Hertz sometimes or used to give you like this little cutout on how to charge an electric car, and they were trying to do education. People don't want to be told how to drive a car.
Right.
They're just getting to their spot. They flew in, they're tired. And so while I think you and I are both huge proponents of electric cars, I would almost argue that the electric rental car has done the biggest disservice to the EV momentum, or one of the contributors to like people really not liking electric cars. So many bad experiences from EV rental cars. Where it does make sense, Jordan, I still think EV rental car places should carry or rental car places should carry electric cars, because a lot of them do long-term rentals for like Uber drivers.
Yep.
That's when you get to know the car, you get to learn the charging infrastructure. It's still good to have EVs in the fleet. It's still great to have a few reserved for us nerds who like to go and rent the car and do this whole thing. But I think most of the EVs that I've rented recently all have pretty high mileage on them. And they're all like 2021, 2022, 2023. I haven't really rented, other than maybe a Silverado EV that you and I got in Vegas, we haven't really rented like a 24 or 25 model electric car. And I think rental car companies in general have just really cut back on buying them because of these teething issues, because of the charging infrastructure, because it might just be part of our culture in America, but people do not want to learn something new. Like that the general population just likes to do what they've always done.
Right.
And so the other downside of this, Jordan, is all these rental car companies bought a lot of their electric cars in 2021, in 2022, when they were so expensive.
Yeah.
Because that was COVID pricing. So like Model Ys were like 60 grand or more. So I just, one of my friends who lives in Canada told me yesterday, he spent over 90,000 Canadian on a Model Y Performance with every option. Jeez. I'm like, bro, that's like 70 something thousand US.
That's rough.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, then all these rental car places like kind of got to keep them in the fleet for a while to offset that depreciation. They probably still can.
Yep.
But, and I think the cars are fairly reliable, even with the hard use that they're getting. Like they're holding up better than anyone could have imagined. But I've just in the past, whenever I rented a car, I'd always get something with 5, 10, 15,000 miles. When I get these Teslas, I'm getting 70, 80, 90,000 mile rental cars.
Wow.
Because they've just got to keep running them to offset that huge depreciation hit.
Yeah. And it is relatively cheap to run them, right? And this one was, not in great shape. And every wheel, of course, completely curbed.
Well, that's a Model Y. They come that way.
And 32,000 miles on it. I think it was like a 2023.
Steering wheel's probably greasy.
Yeah. Just
they all are.
Yeah. Crazy rattles from kind of everywhere. But yeah, it was fine. Like it was easy. I was happy, but I was definitely the only person happy. Everyone, first of all, upset from a delayed flight, and then upset that the counter they wanted to go to was closed, and then upset that the car they wanted was not there. No one chose an EV or a truck.
Yeah, and I think that's very representative. And I think the rental car companies, while I was excited at the time as someone like, oh, this could be really cool, I did not have the foresight as to how poor the general consumer is at learning new things.
Yeah.
Or wanting to learn new things. Like if there's a car that runs on unicorn farts, like I want to be there and try that out. But I'm even thinking about stuff I'm not interested in. For example, like I'm tangentially interested in tech. I think there's a lot of tech enthusiasts. Like if Apple comes out with a new Vision Pro, I at least want to go and demo it. I'm not maybe the target buyer, but I want to try it. I want to learn it. I want to understand it. I think very few people are like that. I think very few people are just like, you know what? My car gets me from A to B. I don't want to look at what else is out there. It's all garbage. When I get a rental car, that's the last thing I want to do is to figure out where to charge it. Does my Airbnb have a charger? Does my hotel have a charger? Now I've got to waste time to go juice up this car, wait in line, especially in LA or Austin, in places that have, high adoption of electric cars with a lot of apartments or condos, because the public charging stations are overrun. And, dude, I really think the electric rental car has done a huge disservice to the EV revolution, even though at first glance when it happened, I think we were all excited when Hertz was like, we're going hardcore on Tesla and you're going to have the same experience with your car at home as you do, wherever else you go. People just don't want it.
Yeah, which is strange. I'm curious. I think a lot of people, when they rent a car, I imagine they would pick, if they had the option of the brand, they'd pick what they have at home because they just want familiarity.
Right.
Whereas I'm going in, I'm like, I want anything but what I have at home because I want to try something new.
Right, so you're like, anything but Tesla, and then you're like, here's a Model Y.
Yeah. I was like, okay, this is easy, but also, dang, I would have liked to, try the Mach-E or just see what everything else looked like. But chaos, and it was fine. But, I mean, I'll show really quickly on the screen just the map of Austin with how it looks like on PlugShare. I mean, a million things, and you can even sort by free, and you could see what I saw and what I did, which was I went to Rivian, checked out the space. They have free 10 kilowatt 48 amp chargers there, and you can just sit there and work. And they encourage Rivian owners, Rivian curious, but also just EV curious. And it's interesting talking to those guys because I actually got different stories. One guy was like, yeah, we focus mostly on like telling people about EVs, education. And even if they don't have the money for an R1, which granted is not a lot of people, they still try to tell people to buy an EV. So that was kind of cool. They're like, we don't even care if you buy a Rivian, just buy an electric car and we'll tell you everything you need to know about any electric car. And then someone else is like, we don't actually do much education because everyone here is already so techie in Austin. So it's kind of interesting to like see those two different perspectives from the same Rivian showroom.
But you got to go there and charge for free, and it was no problem, and you just had lunch or whatever, walked around, toured it.
Yeah.
I mean, still, that's going to be like a 5-6 hour charge at that one.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of superchargers in Austin, too.
Yeah, there's so many superchargers. None of them were full. Like,
same when I was there.
Was not like the Vegas experience.
Right. I went to a couple EVgo EA sites, and they were full.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, so what happened when you returned your car? Did you bring it back dead? Did they charge you?
No. They said up front that they wouldn't worry about charging. But I also wonder, all these cars, they were set to basically have charge limits at like 80%, but then they usually tell people to bring it back at 80. So I wonder how many people would like not understand. I don't know.
Like go in and set a charge limit. Like these are things that just the general consumer
don't think about.
Yeah.
And they could have had, a QR code to plug share or something at the counter. So just like some way to make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But that's also another app that stresses people out.
And you can't activate the chargers with plug share. I mean, very few. And so then you need another app or a card, and then the card reader might be down. And if you really want to see just how like really bad at adapting to new situations Americans are, park yourself at an Electrify America charging station for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And just watch the confusion. It doesn't matter which station, wherever you go, people will just be scratching their heads, figuring out, oh my God, this is crazy. And it's really just like pay and plug in. Like it's a very basic process. Right. They could also make that process easier.
Yeah.
But people really are confused when it comes to any type of change from fueling to recharging. And we're out of the early adopter stage of EVs. We are in normal people driving these things, and man, is it rough.
Yeah. I mean, EVs sold is up another 7% this year. So the U.S. is growing in terms of market share, but it's still, I don't know. What's the solution?
Plug and charge enabled from the factory with roaming.
Yeah.
Roaming is the main solution, I think. You have one account set up on the car and every network talks to each other. The problem is one of our major networks in the U.S., Electrify America, refuses to roam.
That's frustrating.
Yeah. Iana wants to roam with everyone.
Yep.
That's like two totally different experiences. So that holds up a lot of experience, I think.
Yeah.
So anyway, dude, electric rental cars. I'm sure everyone's got their own story. So many people are probably listening to this being like, yep, I've seen that before. And we're, the viewers of this channel and us, we're always like, give us the EV. And they're like, you want an electric car? I'm like, yeah. When I went to go rent the Genesis G80 electric for the I-90 Surge, I had to like call Avis corporate. Like I had a friend who runs like their fleet over there. I'm like, you need to make sure this car is there and we're good to go. And I got there to pick up the car. And they're like, oh, you're returning in Boston? I've got like so many gas cars for you.
Right.
I'm like, no. I want to drive an electric car across the country.
They can't contemplate that.
Yeah. They really cannot figure that out.
Right. So that's my experience. If you guys have experiences, which I'm sure you do, let us know in the comments because I'd love to see those stories and maybe even talk to some of you on the show and discuss what you've experienced because there's probably crazy stuff out there. I mean, rental in general is just like like if you want to sit, like you said, sit at a DC fast charger near an airport and you'll be entertained for so long.
I also just am curious to see what people think the solution is because I do think it's important to have some EV rentals because it is representative of some customers wanting those cars. But are extended range EVs kind of the perfect stopgap?
It might be.
I think plug-in hybrids are kind of lame because you don't get an EV-like driving experience. But if you have an e-rev, then people can dabble and play around with it and not have the risk.
Right.
That could be interesting.
Yeah. And I'm curious if there's a lot of people who, have thought about buying EVs and would rent one to test it out. I'm sure that's probably a minority, but still a good way to try it.
It's always good. Just keep a few cool EVs on hand. Have them available.
Yep.
And people just got to learn how to adapt. Like either the consumer has to change or they just need to carry more combustion cars.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure it's not the consumer who's going to change. So thanks for watching. Thanks for the story, Jordan. That was when you told me that, I'm like, we got to do an episode. This is, it's just anecdotal feedback, but you and I have both been in this situation many times where we're traveling and we're trying to get a Tesla or trying to get something because we also need to film electric cars.
Yeah.
And they are just always so confused. Why are you asking for this?
Right. But they're like relieved because they're like, thank God, because no one's taking these. So
yeah. I was recently somewhere with Alex when I went to go went to Bonnie's house to look at the barn find.
Yeah.
And they had one electric car at Hertz.
Nice.
And they swapped us into that. They're like, really? Really? You're going all the way out to the middle of Tennessee? You want this car? Yes. It's got autopilot.
Yep. We're nerds. So anyways, let us know what you think. See you in the next one.